All right, story time. Why did I become a ladder assist? Shout out to Gary Vee for giving me this idea. You're awesome, man. So I kind of feel like I just fell into this job, stumbled into it, if you will, and I'm so grateful I did. So before I started working as a ladder assist, I was actually selling metal roofing material as a salesman for a manufacturing uh, plant. I guess we were regional, very small, and so I learned a lot about roofing and the different materials, the different aspects of roofing, and everything about the roofing industry in that job. But it was an inside sales job. I barely got out of the office. I was inside all day answering phones on the computer. It's just not me. I don't like doing that. I didn't like doing that, and there was a little more to it, a little more of that story. The place I worked, I just didn't feel valued. I didn't feel like I could make a decision without getting, told I did something wrong, or getting, it was like a nitpicked. Everything you did got nitpicked, and you never did anything right, and just that whole spiel. And so after about like 2 or 3 months, I realized, man, this is not the place for me. And I stayed a lot longer than I should have. I stayed like 5 months or 6 months, I think, before I left. And so if you're watching this and you're in a job that you hate, find something else. It's not worth it to stay in a job where you're miserable. It affects other aspects of your life, and it's just not a good place to be for your soul and for your mental health. So I reached out to the guy who owns Doyen Consulting. It's him and his sister own it. He's a buddy of mine, West Bridges, and I knew that he did something with roofing, and I thought he was like an insurance adjuster. So I just reached out to him and said, hey man, is there any way you're hiring? And he really wasn't at the time, but he was like, yeah, we'll find a spot for you. We'll get work for you. He said, just give us a little time. It's a little slow right now. It's kind of like early spring. So if you're familiar with this industry, spring until like early fall, maybe like April, May to October is a busy time because it's always like hail season, storm seasons, a lot of thunderstorms and hurricanes and different weather events that cause damage to roofs. It increases work. So this was like, we were just getting into that season, so they weren't super busy. And he's like, yeah man, just give me like 2 weeks, and it should pick up, and then we'll get you going. So it was like 2 weeks later, I reached out to him. He's like, no, it's still not, it's kind of slow. So that was 2019. And if you're in this industry, you know how slow 2019 was. There was just no storms. And there was like, I don't know, a week or another 2 weeks went by, and something happened at the place I was working. And I got told, hey, you talk to this customer and you need to finish up on this. And I looked at the paperwork. I'm like, I didn't talk to this guy. So I handed the paper back. I said, I'm not doing that. And then the boss man turned around in his chair, because he was always 20 feet away from us, eavesdropping and just looking over our shoulder at everything we did. So we had our little talk, and basically I told him I was leaving. He kind of forced my hand. He said, what are you doing? Are you going to stay or are you going to leave? And I was like, I'm leaving. So I quit that job. He didn't let me work 2 weeks. I thought he was, like most people probably would. Or at least in my experience, most people do. I told him I was leaving. He said, all right, pack your stuff, you're gone. I'm like, crap, man. And I didn't have a job. And so I waited about 2 or 3 days, and I contacted Wes again, and I said, hey man, I'm just, no rush. We're okay financially. We're good. Honestly, I was thankful to have a little bit of a break, a couple of days off, just because I hated that job so much. But hey man, I'm not working right now, so if you do need me, just let me know. I can work 1 day a week. I can work 2, whatever you need. And he's like, oh, okay. And Wes is just a good dude. So he's like, no, man, just Monday morning, meet me and we'll start training you up. So that is how I ended up in this job, in this field, in this industry, working for this company. And I'm so glad that it happened the way it did. Not necessarily the way it happened, but I'm just so glad that things did happen and I ended up working this job, because now I don't have somebody staring over my shoulder and nitpicking everything. I don't necessarily get to make my own schedule, but I have a lot of freedom and I'm not under somebody's thumb all the time, which I work really well when I'm not under somebody's thumb, and I have the flexibility and the somebody trusts me enough to make my own decisions and not look over my shoulder. So that's how that happened with me, and that concludes this episode of Story Time. Thanks for watching.